So, hi everyone, today we will look at the 3 marks of existence in Buddhism. So these 3 marks of existence are 3 characteristics of all existence and being. So everything we see around ourselves, including ourselves, not only just on this planet, but everywhere in the universe, all the conditioned things, they abide by these 3 marks of existence. These 3 characteristics are mentioned in verses 277, 78 and 79 in Dhammapada, and they are the impermanence or anicca, unsatisfactoriness or suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. So let's look at each of those characteristics separately. So impermanence, anicca, refers to the nature of things being impermanent. So if you look around, you might see the change of seasons. Things come into bloom, then they die, and same with yourself. You go into existence, then you start growing, then you age, and then you die. So everything around us stays in the state of impermanence constantly. There isn't one thing that stays the same. So the second one, unsatisfactoriness or suffering, is just stating that there is suffering in the world. So the third one, non-self, anatta, is quite an interesting concept because it was at the time very controversial with Vedas, the ancient texts which Hinduism is based on. They were looking at the self, Atman, as being one permanent thing that you would have. But Buddha, he went to saying that actually there is no self. So how he came to it, he said, look at yourself, look at your body. So you were a baby, you were a tiny little thing. Then you grew, you were a teenager, and like a young adult, older, growing older. All the time there was change. Can you say that you were you at a certain point in that life? Can you pinpoint your body in that change? No, it's just constant change. There isn't one thing that remains the same. And then if you look like, okay, well, I'm not just my body, I'm my thoughts. And thoughts, you look at your thoughts, they change all the time. One moment you might be raging, it's like, oh my God, this person said this or said that. And the next moment you're like, oh, well, actually it wasn't that bad. Maybe it was my fault as well. Or, we change belief systems, we change also our moods. One day we can be happy, another day we can be sad. And so what would be you then? What would be the characteristic of you? And even if you say, well, generally I am centered, generally I'm hardworking, well, if you look at yourself, throughout the time, well, maybe one day you weren't hardworking, one day you were not centered. So was it not you then? So the idea is, if you look at yourself, whether you look at your body, mind, emotions, anything, there isn't one thing that remains the same over the time as the time passes. They're just all changing characteristics, changing all the time. And hence Buddha said, as well as you can't pinpoint one thing that remains the same. Where is self? Self is a delusion. We are deluded that there is this thing that is us. Well, in fact, it's just characteristics flowing, coming and going, changing from time to time. For me, I think non-self was very interesting. And it's like a philosophical discussion. You don't have to always agree with it. And I know that some people, wouldn't always agree that there isn't this non-self. But even a thought, that those thoughts, emotions, body, changing all the time, and we try to anchor ourselves to certain characteristics of ourselves. So saying, I'm young, I'm smart, I'm happy. Then when we don't get it, when one day we wake up old and we are not happy and our mind is not as sharp, it's very difficult to then understand that it's still those characteristics that are getting you along. There isn't this thing, one thing, and this delusion is causing you suffering. So we will look now into suffering out of ignorance. Ignorance, avidya, of the three marks of existence, is regarded as a first link in the overall process of samsara, where one is subject to repeated existences in an endless cycle of suffering. So let's look at this. Sounds quite grim, but actually, if you understand it, it makes your life much easier. So ignorance about these three factors being impermanence, right? Ignorance that things change. So for example, you might be even alright, with the seasons changing, though some people are like, oh my god, it's cold, it's miserable. When the sun is coming, that's ignorance of impermanence. That's not kind of sticking to there is one way that things should be and not allowing the change to just happen, not being fully in tune with that change, understanding that change and thinking that it should be that way, but it's not, hence the suffering. Or the suffering out of the non-acceptance that there is unsatisfactoriness or suffering in the world. If you do not accept that some days you might be ill, you might be sad, you might have bad thoughts, you might suffer, it's causing more suffering. And again, if you think there is a self, okay, I am this very smart, motivated, highly performing person, at the top of my game, and then something horrible can happen, and all your thoughts, all your kind of beliefs in who you are and your qualities and characteristics, they fade, they break down, and suddenly you're experiencing much more suffering if you didn't have that concept of yourself. You were just accepting yourself moment by moment. It's like, oh, interesting, today I have happiness. Ooh, interesting, today I have sadness. Ooh, interesting, today I look slim. Ooh, interesting, today I gained a few pounds. So this kind of changes, and that there is no one self that you stick to. And so what in the Buddhist philosophy they talk about is that this suffering, it's like a ball. It's like as long as you keep on feeding that suffering, as long as you keep on sticking to that ignorance about either one, two, or all three marks of existence, you are not accepting the change. You are not ready to accept that one day you can be living a perfect life, and another day something can happen and it's just a process of change. You are not willing to accept that there is suffering and life is not all about just pure happiness, and you are not willing to accept that there is no self in you, just characteristics, thoughts, bodily functions, emotions that just change all the time. This will constantly create this circle of unnecessary suffering, which like a ball, which will keep you in this ball cycle of suffering. I won't go deeper into samsara because there is a lot of information, a lot of things that you could talk about in relation to samsara, but that's kind of the idea. I hope we're all right with that. So the good thing is, while ignorance keeps us in this cycle of suffering, we can get rid of that ignorance through direct insight into the three marks. And as a result, we can get rid of suffering, which is dukkha nirodha or nirodha sakha. And it is it's the third of the Four Noble Truths. So, how do we do that? How do we go out of this, cycle of suffering, cycle of ignorance? So, the antidote is mindfulness, which is moment-to-moment awareness of the external and internal factors. External factors being things outside of you, internal factors being inside of you, your mind, your thoughts, your body. So when we have that direct awareness, mindful, moment to moment, without judgment, and we just observe things as they are, when they're changing, when we are changing, when there is suffering, we directly learn about these three marks of existence. So I think what's interesting in Buddhist teaching, a Buddha never said that you can just, look into these three and suddenly, boom, revelation, you understood it all. You have to have a direct insight. You actually have to practice mindfulness in order to understand those three. So in our courses, we do teach people how to practice mindfulness, moment-to-moment awareness. But in terms of what you can start doing today, for example, is noticing things around you as they change. You don't have to constantly think, oh, I'm looking for a change, like this plant hasn't changed since yesterday, interesting. No, you just look at things. You just observe curiously, like from a third person perspective. You just keep an open mind and you look. You can use your five senses of touch, smell, sight, hearing, and taste to explore the world around you. So you can look, and you can sit maybe sometimes for 5 minutes and just look and see how things change. Maybe notice from day to day, you wake up, one day there is a flower, next day the flower is dead. Maybe you listen to the birds, you see the seasonal changes. That will help you get this direct perception into, things change outside. So if you are, for example, even in a flat, looking outside through the window and seeing nature is really helpful because you can see amazing changes happening. Even in your flat, like try not dusting for a week and see what changes you get. or I'm not saying you should, by the way, but leave things without intervening and just see what changes there might be. There are always changes, even if you just keep yourself in a flat, in a house, and not look at nature. You will still see some changes. See the changes in your body as well, like you don't cut your nails for a few weeks. See the changes in your body. And then if you are ready, and we do teach in our courses how to make yourself ready to go into that deeper state, but if you feel you're ready, it's comfortable for you, you can start noticing your thoughts changing. So sometimes you might feel like anger, you might be very angry at someone. You might think, oh my God, I'll never forgive that person. I just don't know how they did that. It's just unimaginable. And then, maybe a few days, maybe a few months pass, and you're like, well, actually, wasn't that bad. I'm still a bit uneasy with that, but I'm not angry anymore. See those emotions change. See the thoughts change. See how every time you have a thought, try to just look at it without judgment. That's very important, because quite often when we have a thought, we kind of say, oh, that's a wonderful thought, or oh my God, I'm a horrible person, I thought that, oh, that's crazy. But just watch your thoughts without any aim to, get any gratification or any judgment for it. Just watch them come and go. Same with emotions. Be curious. Be a bit like an explorer. You can even lead a diary where you write down those changes from day to day as your practice. So that is the way how we learn about impermanence. As we learn about impermanence, we see that some days we might have written feeling great, amazing mood, so in my high spirits. Next day, everything is awful. I feel down, I feel depressed. You will see that there is suffering. There are good, you might see good days, bad days. We're not judging, of course, but there are just some days where you feel good, some days that you don't feel good. And just seeing that and saying, well, I'm still here, I still survived through it. It's all right. Just non-judgmentally looking at it will teach you that about this suffering, the second one. And the third one, as you see yourself changing all this time, the thoughts, oh my God, the thoughts are just like flowing in and out and changing. You then understand, well, yeah, that's self. I can't really pinpoint it. And that's, I think, a very beautiful revelation when you stop looking at yourself as a certain set of attributes, either physical or mental, emotional. And just see yourself as, this kind of changing, ever-changing being. So practice, I actually can tell you, keep on saying lots of things about, the mind and the different things we can do. But if you don't start practicing that, you will never understand these 3 marks of existence. You might understand them mentally, but actually the only changes you will start having is when you start practicing and patiently. And again, many people say, well, I've been doing it for 3 days already and it didn't blow my mind, didn't illuminate me. It takes years, guys. It takes, and that's where you talk about this concept of illuminated people, or when you have done so much work, you have, you sometimes go have glimpses of those marks of existence, such as like suddenly you're like, yes, of course I'm changing, but then the old patterns of your thinking take hold and you're kind of stuck where you were maybe months ago, which is normal, but it's just a process of constant practice. That's why mindfulness has to be really practice. You have to do it constantly to see results. And you'll also be falling back, but eventually you will get more and more insight. That's why I'm saying I am by no means in a ready project, because I'm still in this process of exploring, going deeper into the 3 marks of existence and explaining it at this point as far as my understanding goes, which might be different in a year's time, and it might be different to yours as well. So yes, I hope that encourages you to start your practice if you haven't yet. But what clouds our perception of the 3 marks of existence? So you might start looking in terms of okay, there are these 3 things and I know what I need to look for. There is this change in outside world, change in myself, in thoughts and feelings in the body. I should also accept there is suffering. Okay, but then what do you actually look for when you are working with mindfulness, moment-to-moment awareness? Certain things will come up. So as you are looking at the world, you will start noticing certain mental patterns that your mind creates. And these mental patterns, I call them mental filters. So think about them like glasses or lenses that you look through the world with. So They can be related to the past, so you might have been brought up in a certain environment with certain experiences. So an example would be if you were brought up in Siberia, you never left Siberia, and then you go and you don't even know about the outside world, you just know people around you. Suddenly you go out, you see another country, people speak different language, people look differently. You will be looking at world differently than someone who has been brought up, with understanding of other cultures, other worlds. And something like your experience is very important. So if you, I remember in our philosophy classes, there was this thing. If you've never seen a black swan, and there are black swans, you might not think that there are any black swans, and your experience would make you kind of deduce that that's not possible. Then one day you see the black swan, everything of course changes. You start seeing swans as different. They can be both white and black. So our past experiences, upbringing, is very important in shaping how we look at the world, how we perceive things. In some families, you might have been told off for certain behaviors, and then you see those behaviors in another culture, and they are totally acceptable in that culture, and you might still find yourself perceiving it as negative, for example, or something you've been praised for, you will see as a positive thing. So you'll be looking already from your early age, you will be looking at things in a certain way according to your experience, upbringing, people around you, environment around you. This will shape your lens. This will start shaping the way you kind of look at things. And also from those past experiences, and also in accordance to your character, because of course we still have our characters shaped by environment, but also genes. And in ancient schools they also talk about karma, so something we could have got from the past life, and this will shape how we look at the future. So some people might be very excited about the future, positive. Some people might look a bit grim about the future, and it will always be very much individual and depending on certain factors such as your character, upbringing. So these filters will distort your picture from moment to moment. So if you're looking at the world and you have a certain way of thinking about things, so you might think that certain things are good, certain things are bad, certain ways of behavior are good or bad. Sunny weather, for example, sunny weather is good, rainy weather is bad. When I'm happy, it's good, when I'm sad, it's bad. There are so many others. I mean, I would encourage you to actually sit down and write down as many as you can think of. You will find so many, probably you won't have time to write them all, but maybe just start writing them every day, things you believe in. And you might start with very, simple things, but sometimes you go very, very deep and you discover things about yourself that you thought you didn't have. So these things, they distort how we see the picture. So the moment this thought arises, so for example, you look at the garden outside the window and you see it's sunny and you think, how wonderful that it's sunny. And you give a judgment and you're like, oh, interesting. I find that sun is good. So just be a bit more explorative when those things come, when those mental filters, when those lenses come in. Or for example, you are sitting again observing, and maybe observing your thoughts, emotions this time. And you're like, I really hope that tomorrow I feel, well, or I really hope that I am fit in a week's time. And you're already projecting your expectations because you're like, oh, I've been doing so much work like on my body for these weeks. You're already projecting things in the future. So you are expecting something. You're expecting yourself to be happy and well. And those expectations, even though they are good things in terms of they can motivate us. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying get rid of them. But on the other hand, they can be quite dangerous. So if you attach to this picture of like, I am fit in a week's time, or I'm happy tomorrow, and you're not, things happen. The impermanence of the things tells us that things don't just stay the same. So it could be that you will be happy, it could be that you are sad, but it's all right either way. But you cling to this expectation that you will be happy. That's where the suffering will come in. So see yourself expecting. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't be planning, you shouldn't be hoping for the best. We all live out of this, we need to hope for the good future, for the positive future. But the thing is, there is a difference between planning for the good and attaching to that plan. So when the plan doesn't work, your whole world collapses. So just look at those, attachments. They are also called attachments, where you can't actually accept when when the picture of the reality is not the same as you predicted or expected. Everything collapses. Also watch those moments. Maybe write them down. So moment to moment of awareness, observing those filters, writing them down without judgment is a very powerful tool. So you can keep a diary where you would see things from the past, expectations about the future, things should be that way, I should be this way, people should be this way, the world should be this way. No one said it has to be this way. I mean, who said that the world has to be a certain way? There is no book or person or anyone. It's just, in fact, what we can see is everything is changing. So why would it be a certain way? It's just a filter in our head. So just look at those things in terms of past, things that muddle your vision of the reality, and future attachments that also muddle your picture so that you can't accept things as they are if they're not what you want them to be. So I know that was quite a lot of already, but if you want to finish here, that's absolutely fine. If you want to look a bit, more into those states of awareness, those filters of the mind, I invite you to look at the 3 gunas. I will only be touching upon them here because it's quite a big topic. But the 3 gunas concept comes from the Vedas, the ancient texts. And the Vedas are the basic foundations of Hinduism. But we're not talking about religions here, we're only talking about philosophies here. I would like you to just get some understanding of these 3 gunas, because for me it really helped me start understanding my mind more and seeing those filters and seeing how they constantly change. So one of the filters is actually a non-filter, sattva. Sattvic state of mind is where we have that pure knowledge, awareness and wisdom. It's unclouded consciousness. So it's where you would see those 3 marks of existence clearly without any, without any filters, which that's why it does take so long, because many of us constantly get more filters, and we already have lots of filters. Filters being, wrong perceptions of reality, or illusions, they're also called. And in order to get to that state when you see things clearly without attaching your perception or judgment is a big word, to the certain thing that you see, experience, it takes time, because you need to start becoming more and more aware of those filters you have in your mind. But the true knowledge and the true awareness and unclouded consciousness state, where we have unveiled truth, when it's clear, it's the state of sattva. And we might have more of it one day, less of it another day, but practices such as mindfulness and others, they help to get more and more of this clear consciousness. As you work on yourself, the more and more your awareness will become clear. So that's one state. We try to, work towards it. And then the second state, rajas, is the state of agitation, where the truth gets distorted. So it's good to know this state, because this state of agitation, it can be going hand in hand with anxiety, stress, this fast pace. Oh, I need to do everything like so fast, and not like stopping for a moment to just like see things clearly. It's basically you are moving a lot in the water and you are making everything muddy. That's how I see it. You don't just stop and breathe for a moment to just see everything clearly. Lots of people in Western society, as far as I understand, live in this state of like constant movement, and you can't really see the truth behind that movement. We kind of don't want to stop. So one of the signs that I see as a mindfulness meditation teacher is when students don't really look inside themselves, don't really observe their true emotions and thoughts. They just like do things morning till evening. They are productive, and of course lots of hormones get produced. They get feeling of high, but they don't really like stop and look what's actually happening behind that high. Sometimes things can pop up, but sometimes we're not looking at those things, just because we want to stay this kind of moving and agitation. It's like it's bringing us this state of high. So look out for that state, because I say I think it's present in most people in Western society, as far as I can see, and it does distort your perception of things, of like your emotions, your thoughts, and the world around you as well. So tamas is a state of inertia, or where the truth is veiled. So some days you might feel like very depressed, very, down, and it just feels like there is a cloud over you. You can't think of anything. Sometimes you think that the whole world is just like a big black hole, and there is no way out. So it's like the sun has disappeared. But actually, it's kind of the truth has completely been covered by this cloud, this tamas, the feeling of inertia, depression and sadness. And you do need to know that there is still sun behind that cloud, because sometimes we take this state of tamas or inertia as the truth, which it's not. There's still sun. The cloud didn't make the sun disappear. And we need to look out for those states, because one day it might you might feel like this, and it can bring you completely down, not just because of that feeling, but because of how you feel towards that feeling. You take it for the truth. If you don't see those states, it's just states of mind, but you see them as real truth of things, that's when the problem comes. It's not agitation, as chemically we do go into the state where our cortisol, stress hormones goes up to help us wake up, for example, and do certain tasks. Our body wouldn't be able to function without that hormone. But if it's all right to have it, right? But if too much of this agitation, if like your day is filled with cortisol, you don't give yourself breaks, that muddles your perception of things. And the same with tamas. If you are in inertia, like it's all right to take rest, you know, to take time off. But if you are all the time completely in that state without, thinking that that's your true state of being, you don't actually see past it. You think that the whole world is a cloud. And I'm not saying, like, some of you might find yourself being in one state more than other, but usually we would be having days when we will have one more than the other, or the mixture of a few. So for me, this was particularly helpful to kind of see, I see my rajas today. Interesting, very strong rajas today, very agitated. Just noticing, without judgment, very curious, just with curiosity. And the same with tamas. I just feel like very much under the cloud today. And just noticing it, there are certain techniques, of course, mindfulness being one of them, that you do to get out of those states, to stabilize yourself. So if you haven't yet started practicing mindfulness, it could be very useful. There are other things you can do also in Ayurveda. I'm studying a beautiful Ayurvedic course that I can recommend if you're interested, that teaches you also about food and lifestyle that can help with that. But just knowing about this, can be very liberating, can be very useful, and just help you look at things more in terms of what they are, rather than your own distorted, sometimes, perceptions. So, alright guys, I think we are done for today. I know that was quite a long lecture. Some concepts are quite difficult, and I think even you can spend days and years, and they do in Buddhist monasteries, discussing just one of the concepts of the 3 marks of existence. But I just wanted to give you a bird's kind of view of these concepts, and maybe encourage you to start a discussion. You can maybe watch it with your friends and do a Skype call and start discussing, read a bit more about it, research a bit more about that, start maybe doing some of the techniques I suggested, maybe find some others, and hopefully it will start making you feel better, making you more aware of your patterns of thoughts and behaviors, just make you more aware of things. And this awareness, even though it's not happiness and joy, is always a side effect of that awareness. I can say that I definitely throughout the years got lots of happiness and joy out of that awareness, which I hope you will too. So we will have another class that I'll post in about a month's time. If you do want me to go deeper into certain concepts, please comment below. And if you also want to suggest other topics, I will be doing the next one on Yama and Yama, the 2 limbs of the 8 limbs of yoga. But if you want some other topics, please do do comment below, and let me know your thoughts as well. Do you maybe something else about the 3 marks of existence, or the 3 gunas, or your own experience? Please do share. And please do share this video if you find it useful. I would really love people to start talking more about these things and getting more awareness spreading. So thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your day, and stay well. Thank you.